the collapse of the Roman Empire, the Western world entered a period that would later be called the Middle Ages. In Western history, the Middle Ages are usually divided into two periods, the Dark Ages and the High Middle Ages. The Dark Ages was a period during which much of Greek and Roman civilization was lost. Human life became very primitive, and most people's lives depended on the land and agriculture. During this period, Europe was constantly attacked by various tribes. In these circumstances, the only institution that prevented the complete collapse of European civilization was the Roman Catholic Church. Art, education, culture, and knowledge during this era continued to exist mainly under the supervision of the Church. For this reason, the history of music in medieval Europe is directly intertwined with the history of the Church. During this period, most music was transmitted orally and passed down from generation to generation by word of mouth. For this reason, a large portion of the music from this era has been lost forever. The role of music in this age, which was entirely under the control of the Roman Catholic Church, was to create the appropriate spiritual atmosphere for prayer and the performance of religious rituals. Church music was simple, monophonic, and lacked a defined rhythm. Its purpose was not to express individual emotions, but rather to convey the sacred text without causing distraction. For this reason, the majority of medieval music was vocal. The most important form of music from this era was Gregorian chant. These chants were attributed to Pope Gregory I from the 9th century AD. But later research showed that these hymns developed over several centuries and cannot be credited to a single individual. These hymns were not composed for performance, but were sung as prayers. In the very beginning, simple symbolic signs were carefully written above the words to indicate the specific direction of the melody. These early signs, which were called neumes, represented the very first steps toward modern musical notation. Over a long period of time, this rudimentary system gradually evolved and eventually made it possible to record complex sounds much more precisely than ever before. This transformation was carried out by a priest named Guido d'Arezzo. He used a 4-line system in which the lines were distinguished by different colors. Later on, these colors were eventually removed, and the concept of the clef was introduced to take their place. The names of the notes were also taken from a teaching hymn composed by Guido himself, with the initial syllable of each verse becoming the name of a note. From around the 11th century AD, the Middle Ages entered a new phase. Cities grew, universities were established, and music gradually moved out of the exclusive domain of the Church. One of the most important developments of this period was the emergence of polyphonic music. For the first time, more than one melodic line was performed simultaneously. This change was not merely a musical transformation, but also reflected a shift in the way of thinking. Music was no longer just a tool for prayer. It became a space for structure, thought, and creativity. To facilitate the composition, performance, and transmission of polyphonic music, a universal notation system was developed, which gradually evolved and reached its standard form. During this period, composition replaced improvisation. With the emergence of the profession of composition, specific principles and rules also appeared, and from the 11th century onward, musical works became known by the name of their creator. The first composer to sign his name beneath his works was Léonin. In the 14th century AD, profound and influential changes took place. The absolute dominance of the Roman Catholic Church came to an end, and the theocratic system entered a crisis. In response to these circumstances, secular thought, art, and literature emerged. This was an era in which the foundations were laid upon which Western music would later be built.